Can drinking too much water kill somebody?
If you don't have your health, what do you have?
You are a functional medicine doctor.
Join us as we blend modern and ancient wisdoms to be well now.
3 times in recent weeks, we've had a content creator, a young 10-year-old boy, according to the New York Post, and then the one that I just saw, a woman actually died. So these two got seriously ill from drinking way too much water too fast, but this Indiana mother died. And it's sort of bringing up this idea that you can drink too much water, potentially, and it can lead to some kind of fatal outcome. We don't want to speak specifically about this case, but it's certainly drawn a lot of attention to this.
Yeah, a lot of people are looking at it. There's a lot of eyes on this case right now, and so a lot of people want to know, what's up with water? And is it bad for me?
Yeah, Indiana mother of 2 dying last month after consuming an estimated 64 ounces of water in just 20 minutes. Now, real quick, 128 ounces in a gallon. So we're talking about half a gallon in 20 minutes. Doesn't seem like that much to me. What do you know about drinking too much water? What's the recommended amount? Like, let's talk about hydration and how to avoid water intoxication.
So recommended amount of water, and we've mentioned this to our patients a lot before, and it's always good to have reminders. And so recommended amount of water to consume is half your body weight in ounces per day.
So if you're 200 pounds, 100 ounces of water.
That's right.
Which again,
per day.
It's like this much.
Yeah, almost. Not even quite a gallon.
Not even quite a gallon.
But if you are exerting yourself, if you're exercising, or if you're out in the sun a lot, you may want to have a little bit more than that, but not a lot. So pretty much your standard, you're going to be really safe with saying half my body weight in ounces of water per day.
And we're here in Utah. Real salt's a big deal, and they make great salt. They make Relight hydration powder that I put in my water.
There's a lot of different options that you can take as far as how do I increase my sodium content. And what you're picking up on, or what you're mentioning, Nick, is the idea that what water does as H2O, it's hydrogen and it's oxygen. So when it's introduced into your body, like when we give IVs, we don't ever want to just introduce plain water into your vein. We just don't do that. And if you do that in a high amount or for a long period of time, or a significant amount of fluid over a short period of time, you can cause a condition called hyponatremia, which is basically a very, very low concentration of sodium in your body, which causes a significant amount of symptoms and makes all sorts of cellular functioning go awry. So your cell, the way the cell exchanges nutrients and communicates with one another, is dependent on the balance of sodium and potassium. And this is regulated by the kidney. So these sodium and potassium minerals, these elements in your body, impact how well your body performs. And so if you suddenly drink a whole bunch of water and your body takes that up and puts it in your blood, you can disrupt the balance of the sodium in your body, making it drop the ratio, and then it leads to things like dizziness. You can even feel nauseated. You can feel a headache, and a lot of these things that people often will interpret as dehydration type symptoms. So then they'll go, oh, what do I need to do? I need to drink more water because I'm dehydrated. And that might not be the issue. This is critical for people to understand that hydration doesn't just mean water. Hydration means the appropriate balance of electrolytes, of minerals, of hormones, of proteins in your blood. That's what hydration means. And so when you're looking to rehydrate, even on a hot day, you want to make sure you're including some sodium or some bit of salt, because you're losing and expressing a lot of salt in your sweat as you perspire. So that would be my first recommendation, is say, first of all, how much water? And we determined, okay, it's half my body weight in ounces a day. And then what should I be doing with that water? Well, probably putting some electrolytes in it, some Relight. Redmond does that. Or you can even just take some Celtic sea salt and sprinkle it in there. Or Redmond has their real salt as well. You could just sprinkle the salt.
That may taste nasty to some people.
Yeah, it'll taste different. But what you can do also is you can squeeze a lemon into the water, and with a little salt. It's easier. It's going to be a lot easier to have salt with you than it is to have just lemons floating around. Especially, I think this lady, she was boating, right? She was out on
it was 4th of July,
boating somewhere.
4th of July. Ashley Summers, according to news reports, and she started to feel dehydrated. She got a bad headache, according to the brother who spoke to Good Morning America, and she apparently drank about 4 16-ounce bottles. So again,
and
two of those is 32.
We're talking about 64 ounces.
That's half of this in 20 minutes. It doesn't seem like all that much on a hot day. I mean, I could see myself doing something like that. It's a lot of water.
Sure.
But that's not going to kill me, I don't think.
Yeah, it's really difficult. And a lot of people, I think the social media is going viral with this. Everybody's asking these questions like, is this for real? Like, is this really a thing? People are asking that question. And for me, it's about, I see it more as like dose and timing. So how much time did it take you to consume a certain amount of fluid, right? So yeah, if you consume 64 ounces over an hour or two, it's unlikely to cause a problem. Now, are there a variety of other conditions and factors we have to consider that may lead to this? Every situation, and you mentioned you found one about a little boy. I'd be curious to hear how that one went, because all the other situations that I've found from the journals, it basically came from military training.
Well, this is the New York Post, so take this for what you will. It happened to be just what I found, but it was a South Carolina boy hospitalized, guzzling 6 bottles of water in an hour.
Okay.
He was outside with his cousins that started playing, according to this article, and his mom told the outlet that he gotten himself some water, and apparently 6 bottles in an hour between 8:30 and 9:30 p.m. By 10:30 p.m., he apparently couldn't control his head or arms. His motor functions were gone.
Mm-hmm. That's the cellular
handicapped is what they were saying.
The function of the cell is
dangerously
becoming
low,
impaired.
Dangerously low sodium levels in the blood. So, which apparently had something to do with the kidneys were overwhelmed by the amount of water.
Yeah.
So, I guess first of all, maybe we could talk about that again. But like real quick, just tell me what to do out there. I've heard you're an expert on this. Like, put salt in my water.
I think the base, again, what we're talking about, this condition that people experience as a result of drinking too much water or too much fluid over a short period of time is called hyponatremia. Okay, natremia, that refers to sodium. Na is on the periodic table of elements, right? So basically what that means is you have a reduction in sodium in the blood, in the body. And that reduction of sodium impairs the function of cells to be able to perform their function in the body. And that can lead to neurological issues. It can lead to brain health. You can have swelling in the brain. You can have a lot of different things occur as a result of hyponatremia. But this is the condition that people are developing. And also people will often refer to it as water intoxication. Water intoxication is maybe a more simplified, understandable term, but it's hyponatremia that really people are developing the condition or the state of the body that's causing the problems. So what do? Well, you want to replace it with sodium. You want to have more sodium. Well, what's sodium? Where do we find sodium? Well, we find it in salt. Sodium, Na, is NaCl. That's salt, NaCl, sodium and chloride. So if we include some salt, especially if we know we're going to be out for a long period of time in the sun, and we're going to be sweating and losing hydration, losing a lot of fluid, then we should replace it, but replace it with sodium. So some people, this is where we can have a discussion about quality of electrolytes or electrolyte drinks and things like that. I would say minimize the sugar in your electrolyte drinks if you can, and minimize dyes and flavorings and additives and things like that. But would it be better to consume a Gatorade than to develop hyponatremia? Absolutely. It would be better to do that. Am I suggesting that drink happens to be better than water? No, I think the ideal would be to have salt in your water. But if that's not going to work, find an option that works for you.
Well, what are your kids going to drink? They're not going to want to drink salt and water. Maybe they would, but
yeah, you just make them drink it.
I
Nick,
tried to
come
get
on.
my son to eat a tomato today, and it ended up with tears and tomato on the floor. It was so I'm
You
in the
just
real
keep
world.
putting
Okay?
it in front of them.
I know.
Yes.
I know. There's a whole
Yes.
discussion about, but that's a whole nother story.
It is.
Picky eating
Parenting and children,
and
absolutely.
So,
and kids eating.
You know, in a world where kids out there are eating junk food and
But find the healthiest option you can. Kids do respond to healthier eating.
Yeah.
They certainly do like things that make their tongue and their brain, when the receptors in the mouth go, wow, they like those excitatory responses. Of course they like them. I mean, these guys that are studying how to prepare these foods that are basically a part of our system now, they literally study. They've researched it. They've looked at the science. They've looked at the biochemistry of it. They know the excitatory responses that happen in our brain when our kids eat that food. And they want us to eat more of it. And because of that, we can buy more of it. So try to find the healthiest version you can. Continue to put the healthier things in front of the kids. At least put the healthy options out there. I'm always amazed when I host something for youth and teens. I'll put some unhealthy options out there, what I consider unhealthy, right? But I'll put candy or different things out there because, well, they're kids, sure, and I want to allow them to choose as well. But then I'll also put fruit, and I'll put sliced bananas or strawberries and all these different things out there on the platter as well, so that they can have the option to pick through and choose what they want. And what I find is I often hear the kids saying, oh my gosh, this is the healthiest I've eaten in a while, right? And they're loving it. They consume it. And yeah, sure, they still eat some of the candy as well, but just put it out in front of them. Like, continue to invest in it. And then I do hear this thing too, where people will say, well, it's a waste of money because then it doesn't get eaten. And I understand that that's hard, but my investment is in my kids' health and in my health. And I would rather lose a little bit of money giving them a choice that is healthier, and then seeing that maybe they did or maybe they didn't choose it, right? But having them be exposed to that option and see that option is expected or regular, right? That's what I want to develop for my kids and in my family, is even if I have to end up throwing some of this healthy food away, and I might think, oh, this is a waste. Well, don't think of it that way. I didn't invest in the food. I invested in my kid. I invested in myself. So I'm putting that healthy food out there, not because of the food, not because of what food it is, but because of what that food will do for me and what it will do for my kids, whether they choose it or not at that point, right? So when you're out there, you're planning an adventure, you know it's going to be in the sun, you know you're going to deal with a lot of heat, very likely going to deal with maybe even heat stroke, which is some other, heat shock and a variety of different things that we can talk about on another one. But you know that you need proper hydration. Just understand that hydration is about so much more than just H2O. It's so much more than just water. And getting proper mineralization is the key. So what that means also is if you're eating fruit like watermelon, fruit itself is an excellent rehydration source.
Really?
Oh, 100%. Because you have all your minerals in your fruit. You have strawberries, right? They're very, very, you have a lot of fluid. You have a lot of water. They're moist, and you could dry them and you could still get the minerals. You wouldn't necessarily get as much water if you're doing dried fruit, right? But you still get minerals from them. And you're getting minerals from the watermelon. You're getting minerals from any fruit that you consume. So fruit would actually be a better, perhaps, hydration source than just drinking straight water in a short period of time. Maybe having 16 ounces of water, right, in a short period of time, and then eating some watermelon. eating watermelon, you eat watermelon. Maybe that would be a better option.
And then cold versus temperature of water, does that matter?
With the temperature of water, that's a great question. I really look at it as in, if you have too cold of water and you're trying to digest food, it can be harder on your digestion if the water's too cold. But in this case, what we're talking about is more cooling the body. So you would want cooler water. I wouldn't say ice cold. You don't want it to be like freezing the ice brain freeze that you get. You don't want it doing that. But you certainly want to be able to consume enough of it and for it to contribute a cooling nature to the body as well.
Do you want to cite any of these
I do. I know
your articles, because I know you highlighted them, and some of them were just a ridiculous amount of water.
So
which is why this Indiana woman, and it's so tragic, is like,
it's hard to believe almost, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can't speak on it because we don't know, but
well, that happened. It was reported and it happened. That's what we see. So,
and I think spacing out water, does that seem to make sense?
Well, again, when you look at the interval in which you consume water, if you're consuming water, you consumed 64 ounces in 20 minutes, right? Well, if you had consumed 64 ounces in an hour, that would be very different. And think about it this way. Again, go back to an IV. A critical point of the IV is how quickly am I running that fluid into the body. And I can run it in really fast, or I can run it in really slow. Okay, and if we run it in too quickly, we can run the risk of affecting something called osmolarity, but that's also built into the solution itself for the IV. But we need to be really careful that we're not changing the balance and the makeup of minerals and nutrients and proteins and hormones at too quick of a rate within the blood itself, within the patient. Because if we do that, we can cause other issues and other problems. Okay? So we need to focus on introducing fluids in a very maybe controlled rate that has a longer length or a longer interval is what we're looking for. So maybe drink your fluid more slowly, and while you're drinking it, have fruit or have salt or have something on hand, have a nice drink or an electrolyte or a hydration drink. Now, I wanted to share with you some things because I was looking through the literature to find some examples of water intoxication. Most of the examples that I was able to find, and thanks for sharing those, Nick, but most of the examples I was able to find was from military training. And get a handle. I want you to all understand just how much these military trainees are consuming, how much water. So in 1995, this is one of the first ones I'll share. I think this is a pretty interesting case. They noticed there was a group of individuals. There were a number of them that seemed to deal with this hyponatremia, and it was kind of positioned around this same military base. And so they started looking at it and looking at some of the policies that they were implementing. And they were following this same idea that, okay, if people came in and they looked a little bit, they felt a little nauseated, had a headache, maybe vomiting or a little confused, they were interpreting that more as dehydration, and so they were increasing their fluid intake, when in reality, it looks as though they actually may have already been consuming too much fluid, and so it led to more problematic concerns for them. So there were several recruits. I'm going to read from this. It's called Death by Water Intoxication out of the Military Medicine Journal. These recruits had each consumed 10 to 22 quarts of water. 10 to 22 quarts of water. Tell us again how many is in a quart. So one quart, I think, is 32 ounces. So 10 quarts is like 320 ounces of water.
Yeah, 1 quart is 32 ounces.
Okay, so 1 quart's 32 ounces. 22 quarts. Some of these military individuals had consumed 22 quarts of water, and they had done so during a very short period of time after treatment. Most of these recruits returned to full duty without sequelae. So their conditions, what were they experiencing? Their symptoms, they had things such as nausea, vomiting, confusion, and 5 of them actually developed into seizures. They had seizures and even delirium. Okay. So you look at this and you go, wow, that's a lot of fluid. So when I see, 20 minutes, 64 ounces versus 300 ounces, again, these guys are more fit. What's the hydration? I don't know what's in the source of the water that they're consuming. Is it bottled water? Was it 100% purified water? So it was only H2O, or were there minerals in it? I don't know. If they were drinking tap water, they had some level of mineralization in it, and certainly they probably had chlorine that they were getting it, which is part of that equation, NaCl, right? So the fatal case, this is the one that we'll talk about because I want people to understand just how much water he consumed. In July 1997, there were 4 cases. The fatal case involved a previously healthy 18-year-old native Eskimo soldier who had an unremarkable medical history and was taking no medications. So some people might look at this and say, oh, maybe they were taking medications that were causing the issues. In this case, we don't see that being an issue. On a very hot day, he drank 3 quarts of water before arriving at the rifle range. He then drank 5 more quarts of water. So where are we up to in ounces? So 3 quarts.
So 8 quarts, right?
So 8 quarts. So
that's
3 quarts
be 256 ounces, which is 2 gallons of water.
Okay, so how much do you need per day?
Less than a gallon.
Yeah, less than a gallon for most people, I would think, right? Unless he's a lot bigger than I think, he probably didn't even need that much water for what he should be consuming that day. At that time, water was, and at this base, water was a major focus of their routine, was to keep all the troops and the trainees hydrated. So they just wanted them to drink water. So he rested, and after he rested, he drank about 2 more quarts of water when he rested. When his symptoms did not improve with repeated vomiting, so he started to vomit, what did he do? He consumed up to 10 times or 10 more quarts of water. 10 more quarts of water.
10 more?
Yeah, so 320 more ounces of water. And this is after he had consumed already the 8 quarts, right?
So he did more than 2 more gallons of water.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Yes. And this is basically within that 24-hour period. So he developed cerebral and brainstem edema. His brain started to have fluid on it. He had hyponatremia, and he ended up passing. So that's a very extreme case. So cases like that, we would think, okay, that is very likely going to lead to hyponatremia. Okay. Now let's look at a different one. A 21-year-old or 20-year-old Marine Corps recruit at Parris Island. He presented to a field aid station. It was very hot, very humid day. He had been training for 9 hours and been doing moderate exertion. Things like hiking, maneuvering around obstacle courses and things like that. He had actually a productive cough as well. So he had a cough when he presented. And they were looking at him and evaluating potentially for pneumonia. And then at that time, sometime around there when they were developing or evaluating for pneumonia, he developed a seizure. So he went into a generalized seizure. He stated that he drank at least 6 canteens of water. Now, there's no measurement in here exactly of what that canteen level is. I don't know I don't know if there's a standard for canteens. I'm sure there is within the military. There's probably a standard volume of water that a canteen holds. But he consumed 6 canteens of water during the previous 2 to 3 hours. His initial serum, he was at 113, which is actually fairly low.
Yeah, a lot of water.
He had drank a lot of water. And he had a second seizure en route to the hospital. So he actually returned, was able to return and to training and did well and recover. But again, these recruits are drinking a lot. They're consuming a ton of water, a lot more than what we're hearing about from some of these other stories. Okay.
So those are extreme cases for sure.
Yes.
Again, I think the puzzling part of this.
Well, the puzzling piece is, okay, 64 ounces. What we know is 64 ounces in 20 minutes. What we know is it happened. That's what we know. And so from there we have to say, okay, was there some sort of underlying kidney issue, right? Was there something else that led to her perhaps needing to pay more specific attention when out in the heat, right? And when losing a significant amount of fluid in her rehydration plan? Could it have been better? Could it have been a little wiser? But did she know? I don't think she knew. And with how much focus there is on water, people don't realize how important hydration or how important mineralization as far as sodium and chloride are in rehydration.
What about like electrolyte water they sell in the stores?
Yeah, I think they're great. I think they're great compared to the overconsumption of demineralized H2O.
So smart water, although branded as whatever, you think that's better than just regular water in the context of this conversation?
In this context, you're trying to find something that has mineral content. So
does electrolytes mean mineral content or no?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So thank you. So your electrolytes, sodium, potassium, chloride, those are electrolytes. Your electrolytes are a number of key minerals essentially that are utilized within cellular transactions within the body. And so in order to maintain that, we have to have the appropriate balance. And so yes, your electrolytes are minerals. Minerals are your electrolytes. Salt is the major electrolyte. One of the reasons that we keep salt, anyone who's lived in a smaller town or worked with animals, and they may be familiar with a salt lick. And they'll put them up in the mountains so that the animals can come have a source of mineralization and a source of hydration as well, even on a hot day where it's not just water. They're helping to mineralize their body. Here's another interesting thought about it. When you are in utero, there's something called the amniotic fluid. And you think about, we come from this, amniotic fluid, and it's in there to protect us, to guard our body and prevent infection. This amniotic fluid is the balance of minerals, proteins, and hormones. It's not blood, but it's a balance. Essentially, it's like our serum almost. Okay, and so this protects us in utero and prepares us to come into this world where what we need to do is continue to propagate essentially the saline type solution, this sodium, chloride, mineralization, hormone type solution that we maintained then. We need to continue to maintain that throughout life. And so what we're doing by consuming water is hydrating our cells, but we need to make sure that water has a good balance of electrolytes or a good balance of minerals, which again is why I go back to fruit. That's a really good option. Food is actually a good option for hydrating yourself if it's natural, raw, organic, local.
Wonderful. Well, hey, 29 minutes and 50 seconds into this podcast. We're going to end it right at 30. Great episode.
Yeah, I hope so.
Be Well Now
We'll
podcast.
See how many of you download this and listen, huh?
Leave us your thoughts, your comments. You can email us, bewellnowpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, podcast sponsored by Lionade. Amazing.
Lionade, yeah. We haven't really introduced that yet, have we?
I said as always, but this is the first time. It's an amazing... What is it, and how can they find it, sir?
So Lionade is actually an energy drink. It's a healthy energy drink. So it's got all natural ingredients in it, vitamins, minerals, electrolytes, and it has a Chinese herbal medicine formula to help you keep sustained energy. So a lot of people are concerned about energy drinks that make their heart pound and give them a flush. This energy drink will not do that, but it will help you focus. It will give you a little pump, but it won't make you feel like you're about to become the Hulk.
And it has electrolytes.
And it's got electrolytes.
Which kind of ties into what we were saying earlier in this podcast. So great stuff. Mixes in well with whatever morning concoction you like to brew together.
You like to brew some. I like to mix it with some of our herbals, actually, and it turns out quite well. I mix it with Happy Day sometimes, or our Cereal Support. It mixes really well with a lot of them.
So if folks want to know what the heck you just mentioned, how can they find any of these?
So Lionate is actually made by Earth's Medicine Cabinet, and you can find Earth's Medicine Cabinet. I think it's earthmedicinecabinet.com. You can find them online, and Lionate is sold there. And you can also find it in our office, Community Health and Wellness.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening and watching.
Thanks, everyone.
Namaste.
Namaste.